Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Miss Mood Ring. Today I have a little fun video. I'm going to be narrating the first three chapters of my Sims 4 story, Sweeter Than Sin. I'm not really narrating it word for word, but more so summarizing it, and I will be placing the pictures from my website in this video to give you guys a visual of what's going on. So, Sweeter Than Sin is a Sims 4 story that I created. I've been working on this for a couple years, maybe two or three, but I just started posting it towards the end of 2023. The genre of Sweeter Than Sin is drama, romance, and crime. And my little synopsis, it's a Sim story that follows the lives of the upper class family, the Satos. The Satos have been stalked and harassed by a ruthless anonymous threat for years, and now it's gone too far. But the Satos soon realize that in order to uncover the identity of this person, a few of their deepest secrets will be tomorrow's leading headline. You know what they say, what's done in the dark always comes to light. What I just read is basically the summary I have on my website for Sweeter Than Sin. I'm going to include the link to this either on the video or down in the description box. On this page, you can also see the story directory link, the character page, which is still work in progress, family ties, which highlight the prominent families in the story, and the story warnings. I labeled it story warnings and not necessarily trigger warnings because I'm not going to be labeling every chapter with what is highlighted in the story warnings, but in general, it includes alcohol, drugs, blood, death, gambling, guns, grief, harassment, infidelity, murder, nudity, pregnancy, career struggles, racism, sex, sexism, stalking, swearing, and violence. I know that is a nice long list. But yeah, this is an adult story, so there are going to be adult themes throughout the story. Of course, I do want to include these themes and the things that the characters say or think don't reflect my own personal views. These are fictional, literally, they're pixels. They're pixels. And I'm just, giving you guys a story. So here it is. I do want to take a moment to introduce you guys to the Sato family. What I'm going to be saying right now isn't found on my website, actually. This is just some extra information I'm adding just for this video series. So we have the head of the house, Mr. Ken Sato himself. Ken Sato is the founder, CEO, of an owner of Sato Technologies. I kind of mirrored Sato Technologies off of Nvidia. So they invent GPU and drives advances in AI, HPC, gaming, creative design, autonomous vehicles, and robotics. Don't ask me what HPC means, but just know Sato Technologies, that's the same shit. I'm literally reading this off of Google. And I mirrored Ken's personality kind of off of Elon Musk. He's a major inspiration for Ken. Moving on, we have Marlene Sato. Marlene Sato is, she used to be a model, and now, this is said in the first part, she is the founder of a charity called Every Child Deserves. And we'll get more into the charity and the backstory of that because that's very important within this story. I don't want to give away too much. And I also want to give you guys ages too. So Ken Sr. at the start of the story, he's 58, Marlene is 52. Moving on, we have Ken Jr. Ken Jr. really wants to, I don't want to say be like his dad, but he wants to make his dad proud. He is 29 and he is engaged to Natalia. So Natalia is a little bit of the outsider here. We're going to get into her backstory, so I'm not going to say too much, but I will say that she is kind of like a simfluencer. I know I have a series on YouTube called Simfluence, which I will be revisiting, but she has nothing to do with that series. She's 28. They are engaged. They will be getting married in this story. But then we'll move on to the youngest Sato. Her name is Evelyn, and she is 26. And Evelyn, smart cookie. That's all I can say about Evelyn without giving away too much. So let's get into it. Let's start with Act 1, Chapter 1, Part 1. We are in Willow Creek at the Blue Velvet Lounge. It's December 14th, 2023. Set the stage. We see this band playing, and right now we are at an event, and we are introduced to two characters. Um, and the one in the blue, her name is Bethany Landers, and she's kind of stating to the one in the red, like, I have work in the morning. And the girl in the red, her name is Sabrina Fox, and she's like, you have work every day. You'll be fine. Um, and then as they're talking, someone gets on stage and she is saying, thank you for attending Every Child Deserves Holiday Charity Event. I'm grateful to be able to gather such a kind and generous people together for a great cause. I remember looking forward to Winterfest as a child. For me, it wasn't just about the gifts. I loved watching Winterfest films with my family while drinking hot chocolate and wearing matching pajamas with my sister. And at Every Child Deserves, we believe every child deserves to have such fond memories too. So I promise that every dollar donated will be matched by one of our lovely sponsors. And the crowd is just eating it up. And they clap for her, and she's like, "Listen, there's open bar till midnight. Keep in mind the children that we're going to be helping out with this charity. Um, they deserve a chance to experience holiday joy." So back to the two women who are watching this woman. The one in blue, Bethany Lander, she's like, she knows how to work a crowd. And the one in red, Sabrina Fox, is like, yeah, she always knows, like, just the right thing to say. So it's getting kind of late, and they're like, okay, it's time to go. So as they're leaving, they run into the woman in red. And the two women in red, they're like, clearly we know each other. And, Bethany is now up close with the woman that was previously on stage. That was Marlene Sato. And she's like, she is absolutely breathtaking. Something about Marlene just glowed. So Sabrina Fox introduces the two women, and she's like, Marlene, this is my top client, Beth. And then Marlene was like, oh, Mayor Bethany Landers. It's a pleasure to finally meet you. She's like, I know it's been a long drive from San Myshuno. Thank you for being here. Um, and Sabrina's like, okay, I gotta go to the ladies' room. So it's just Mayor Landers and Marlene Sato. And May Landers takes a moment to kind of schmooze Marlene, and she's like, this is a great event. I'm having an event soon too. Please join us. And she really wants Marlene to go there because she knows Marlene is a prominent figure and she's going to look good in front of all her friends. So Marlene's like, yeah, of course, I'll go. And she's like, Marlene knows the deal. She's like, I'm going to bring my husband too. Thank you for coming. Thanks for your generous donation. So then, Sabrina comes back, and Marlene dismisses herself, and Sabrina's like, okay, so what do you think of my sister? I don't know if I revealed it before, but Sabrina Fox and Marlene Sato are sisters. And Mayor Landers is like, she's pleasant. And Sabrina agrees that pleasant is like the perfect word to describe her. So then there's a little page break, and the night is over. Marlene is wrapping up everything, and she goes to the bar so she can collect the donations. The bartender's like, hey, let's make a toast. And she's like, no, I'm tired. I want to go home. She's like, I just want to go see my man tonight, her husband. And she's like, let me just get the donations so I can bounce. And the bartender's like, donations? Your assistant picked up them donations. Um, and she's like, huh? He's like, yeah, the other bartender, Michaela, said at the end of her shift, a man came up to her, said that he was your assistant and collected all the payments. She told me this before she left at the end of her shift. He said his name was Shio. And Marlene is shocked because she does not have an assistant. So yeah, that's the end of part one. And then I'm going to lead you into part two. Okay, so part two of chapter one. Basically, we see that Sabrina Fox and Mayor Landers are a romantic item. They're a couple. And you can see Sabrina Fox in her cute, I think this robe is so cute. I'm never deleting this robe. But she's kissing Mayor Landers goodbye. Clearly, Mayor Landers spent the night. Mayor Landers is like, listen, I have a meeting that I can't miss. Bethany Landers is like, do you kiss all your clients like this? And Sabrina Fox is like, only my top clients. And they're, they're just kissing and giggling and touching. And Sabrina Fox's phone actually breaks them out of their union. And she kind of like, it changes the mood a bit. Bethany Landers is like duty calls, as in work. As I'm not sure if I said this, but Sabrina Fox is an attorney. So she has a very demanding job, just like Mayor Landers. And Sabrina Fox is like, no, not necessarily. It's my sister Marlene. And Mayor Landers is like, what's wrong? Because she could see how invested Sabrina is into her phone. And Sabrina just tells her flat out, like, someone stole all the donations from last night. And Mayor Landers is like, who would steal money from a charity that supports children? Just call the police. They'll handle it. They know what to do. They can't get away with something as vile as that. And Sabrina's like, she can't call the police. And Mayor Bethany Landers is like, what do you mean? That's what the police is there for. And Sabrina kind of reveals a little tea. She's like, my sister and her family have been stalked and harassed for years now. They've gone to the police before and nothing comes out of it. And now I think the situation is just bigger than the police. They need real help. Mayor Landers kind of picks up what she's putting down, and because she herself has been blackmailed and extorted and even held for ransom. But each and every time she's gotten her revenge. But coming up on top on these sticky situations means getting your hands just as dirty. It's always a game with no real winners. And Mayor Lander says, listen, I know someone who can help. There's a page break, and we go back to Marlene, and it's the next morning as well. And we could see someone making some coffee. You could see Marlene and a man sitting at a little cafe table enjoying the coffee in their cute little pajamas. Not as cute as Sabrina's robe, but still very cute. And Marlene is telling this person, she's like, listen, our friend Chio made a visit. He stole all of the donations, every last check. This person is Ken Sato, her husband. And he's like, listen, I'm so sorry. I know how hard you worked for this event. And she's not really listening. She's just very frustrated. And she says, listen, we moved all the way from Mount Kamarebi to Willow Creek, and we're still getting stalked. We're still getting harassed. When are we really going to do something about this? And Ken really doesn't have an answer. So he's just like, listen, I'll handle it. I'll cover whatever was stolen, and I will still match all the donations like I originally promised. And that does warm Marlene's little heart just a tiny bit, but she's still upset. For him, this is a small check to write, to make his wife happy. But he knows truly, if like to really make her happy, he needs to figure out who is stalking them and who stole the donations. So then we kind of have like a little flashback scene to their previous house. And you can see it says Marlene thought back to the moment when she received the box on her doorstep. The box was plain and unassuming, yet what was inside haunted her. It left Marlene so disturbed that she urged her husband to move the family all the way to Willow Creek. This time she isn't going to run. If Shio was back, this time had to be different. This time Marlene needed to fight. And that is the end of part 2. So moving into part 3 of chapter 1. 'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the night each patron was celebrating with boundless excite. The diamonds were dancing on the dance floor with stylish flair, in hopes that the Satos would soon be there. It's Sunday, December 24th, 2023, the night before Christmas. I set the scene with the Oracle Hotel. This is a historical landmark. Mayor Landers loves this hotel. This is where her inauguration was. And she continues to throw her yearly holiday parties here. Marlene and Ken are walking up to the Oracle. And Ken is telling his wife already, listen, we're not going to be here all night. I'm on a mission. And Marlene's cool with that. She doesn't want to be here all night either. And, we have this beautiful picture of Ken and Marlene dashing in their all black. So, they go in the Oracle and we see Sabrina Fox. She's kind of dressed up a little bit. She looks nice. She's showing off a little cleavage. Sabrina compliments her sister Marlene, like, oh, you look beautiful. Sabrina is not surprised to see how luxurious Marlene looks. She always, she has this beautiful makeup and she's dripping in diamonds and her hair is perfectly styled and frozen in place. Marlene, even though they have different styles, Marlene compliments Sabrina back too, and she's like, "Listen, not as beautiful as you." Sabrina's like, Bethany has something for Ken. She's here somewhere." And Bethany appears from the darkness, just as if the mere mentioning of her name summoned her. Bethany steps forward. She's like, "It's a pleasure to meet you, Mr. Sato. This is long overdue." Um, you know, Beth has heard a lot about Ken and his business practices, and she knows it's better to have him as a friend than a foe. So he nods and he was like, "Let's get straight to business. You have a fix to a problem that I have." She's like, "Yeah, I do. Follow me." So back to the sisters, they're talking, and Marlene's like, "Listen, the wedding's gonna be here soon. I don't have a dress. We should go shopping. We can make it a weekend, just the two of us." And she's like thinking about, drinking champagne and being on a catered plane and laughing about watching the real Sim Wives. And Samina's like, "Girl, I am busy. My next couple weeks are filled." Marlene's just like, "Make some time. We live so close now that I moved all the way from Mount Caporebi to Willow Creek. So, like, let's spend time together." And Sabrina's like, "Listen, I got my own issues right now. I really can't do it. I have two cases going to trial soon. My son Keon he won't stop texting me about baby proofing the living room." And she was like, "I haven't had a baby proof a home in 20 plus years. I thought these days were over." And Marlene's kind of reminded that her sister has her own issues too. Her sister just became a grandmother and she's basically going to be a live-in nanny as well. So her nephew, Keon, he's ambitious and he's creative and he thought his music career was going to take off and it didn't. So he finally threw in the towel and he's moving back home. And he's also bringing his son, Kyrie, and his girlfriend. So yeah, he's moving back in with plus two into his childhood bedroom. And Sabrina's still going off. She's like, "He has the nerve to ask me to fill the nursery with diapers and baby wipes and all this nonsense on my dime." She's like, "What else is my son want me to pay for? His girlfriend's pedicures?" It's like, "He probably just asked me to paint her toes myself." Marlene's like, "Okay, girl, like, I'm gonna get us some drinks." There's a page break, and the scene moves back to Ken and Mayor Landers. So they had moved into, Ken describes as, it felt like the dungeons. It was a renovated bar area, but it was this VIP area. Mayor Landers just pushes through the VIP sign. Like, she's like, "I'm the most important bitch here." And they sit down with this man in green, and she was like, "Hey, old friend, thank you so much for creating time in your schedule to meet us. This is Ken Sato. He is the owner of Sato Technologies and a great friend of mine." Mind you, she has just been introduced to Ken, but she's always like, "He's a great friend of mine," because they're doing each other favors. I'm not sure if you can tell, but I do have part of this scene centered out. I have that on my blog. I did that for Tumblr as well, just because I'm not sure how they're going to be with like nudity and stuff like that. I think I'm going to do that for YouTube too. Well, I know I'm going to do it for YouTube too. Not everything will be censored, but certain things will be censored. So anyways, back to the conversation. This man is like, "This is the man you want me to meet, Mr. iRobot." We are introduced to Mauricio Olivares. Mauricio's like, he looks at Ken, he's like, "What a joke." And Ken is like, "I am more than my company." Mauricio is about to shut this down. He's like, "Listen, I know who you are, Mr. Billion Dollar Business Owner, Mr. King of AI, Mr. I shouldn't pay my taxes because I feed all of you." Mauricio rambled through the headlines he read about Mr. Sato and his shoddy business practices. And these were only the recent ones. How can a man claim to be more than his business if the only thing he opens his mouth about revolves around his business? And Maya Landers jumps into it. She's like, Mauricio, this is a business opportunity for all parties involved. Please. She's like pleading with him to like chill out. And Mauricio's like, no, thank you. Like, no is a clear answer. No is the morally correct answer. Why should Mauricio work for a man that is as self centered as Ken Sato? Maya Landers is like, listen, this man is going to pay you heavenly, and you know it. She's like, he's going to pay you enough to buy a villa in Salvadorada. You know, the one that your wife loves. And Ken is like, yeah, I'm going to pay you enough to buy like 10 of those villas. And that shut Mauricio right up. And Ken's kind of excited. He feels like he got the one up because this man who basically started barking as soon as he walked in and sat down is finally silent. And Ken in his head, he's thinking, money wins every time. There's a page break, and we go back upstairs to the bar area because remember, Marlene had said she was going to go get some drinks for her and her sister. But instead of being introduced to Marlene, we see this woman. Her name is Astrid. She is talking to another woman. And Astrid's like, don't you claim to know her? And they're talking about Marlene. And the other woman we are introduced to is Eliana. And she's like, I do know her. And Eliana is kind of aware that saying that she knows Marlene is a little bit of a stretch. She knew Marlene back in the day. She doesn't know her now. But she doesn't want Astrid challenging her. So, especially not in front of all their friends. So they're like, she's like, I'm gonna get up and go approach her because I know her. So she does, and Eliana's like, Marlene, oh my God, what a coincidence running into you. And Marlene's like, oh wow, this is a face I haven't seen in a while. Ellie, what a pleasure to see you after all these years. And she's like, oh my God, it's been like 30 years, maybe longer. You look amazing. You haven't aged one bit. And she means it. Like, Marlene looks good. And they're both talking about how it's been so long. And Eliana's like, I'm surprised to run into you here because I've never spotted you at the mayor's holiday party before. And Marlene's like, yeah, she's a new friend of mine. um, and Marlene, she takes a moment to say, I always wonder how you were doing, and I'm glad that you're doing great. After everything, I'm glad you're okay. And they both share that moment, like, I'm glad you're doing good too. And Eliana takes a moment to check out Marlene, and she's like, same thing that like Sabrina said, she's dripping in diamonds and she's draped in designer digs and she's bathed in the most luxurious perfume. Marlene was granted the life that the two women both desired all those years ago, while Eliana was married to an ex-cop who still took a few side gigs for extra cash since his retirement fund didn't cover enough. They talk, and after a few minutes, Marlene leaves to go find her husband, and Eliana goes to reconnect with the girls, and she's like walking with this invisible crown propped on her head. And Asha's like, oh, so you do know Marlene Sato. Like, you weren't bluffing. And actually, a little tidbit is I self inserted myself in here, so you can't see the face, but that's my sim self sitting there talking to Astrid, you. She's in a couple chapters, and I think in the actually, yeah, I just scrolled back up in the intro to chapter 3 where it has the Sims dancing, like you can see her dancing. So yeah, check out that. So now we're on the last part of Chapter 1, Part 4. It is Tuesday, January 2nd, 2024. So, right after the new year, it starts off with Eliana and she's meditating and she's trying to clear her mind and think positive thoughts and all that goodness. And she's like, happiness, 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 happiness. Happy Hermes Birkin limited edition Kelly Green crocodile leather with gold hardware. She got that designer on her mind. Something's off. She can't concentrate. She can't figure it out. And when, she's sitting there thinking, and what is it? She hears like this rattling sign. Excuse me. She hears this rattling sound. And then she figures out, like, that is the washing machine. Who the hell is washing clothes at 7 a.m.? And she's like, listen, the morning meditation is ruined. Let's go find the culprit. So she goes back inside and she sees her husband shuffling around in the laundry room. And we get a little bit of backstory about, Eliana and Mauricio. If you haven't put the puzzle pieces together, Mauricio is her husband. They have a very traditional marriage. He goes and gets the money, and she cooks and cleans and takes care of the children, and they're very happy with their marriage. She says that she's the housewife she always dreamt she would be, just without the designer goods. So she's like, "Ooh, are you looking for something?" And he's like, "I'm looking for wool socks." And she's like, "Why do you need wool socks? It never snows in Oasis Springs. That's where they live." He's like, "I have a flight in the morning to San Myshuno." Eliana was like, "I threw them away. They had 2 holes in them. 2 holes too many. I didn't think you would need them, seeing that it doesn't go below 50 degrees in Oasis Springs." Fair assumption. And she put the puzzle pieces together, and she's like, "You're taking the Sato case, aren't you?" He's like, "Yeah, I am." The money is too good to pass up. We could pay off the house and buy a new house with all the money that he's offering. Eliana's like, "But can we trust him? You know, the Sato reputation, Ken's reputation mainly, it's not great. Everyone knows the type of man he is." And Mauricio is well aware that dealing with Ken Sato is like dealing with the devil. Of course, there's a chance for contingencies, but he has a plan, and a good one. He's like, no one can trust him. And I don't think anyone truly trusts him. And Eliana thinks back to her conversation with Marlene, and she's like sitting there wondering, like, how did my friend, my old friend, end up with a man like him? Eliana's like, "Listen, just double up on some cotton socks, you'll be fine." And he gives his wife a loving kiss because she's being supportive. She's being a good wife, essentially. And he promises her that he'll be back before the weekend. And he seals the promise with a kiss. There's a page break, and we are at Sato Technologies, and we see Ken Sato, the man of the hour, giving a presentation, and he's looking at the kids, bunny ears kids in the room, even though they're not kids, they're full grown adults. He's very proud of them, except one. And he's talking, and he's like, "Zaina, thank you for joining Sato Technologies. I'm glad you're here. You have a lot to learn, but I'm sure these three will guide you towards the right direction." And Zaina is like, "Thank you for having me." Then were introduced to Ken Jr. He was like, "This is my son, Ken Jr. He is currently appointed as the San Myshuno office building manager. He's gone through the same management training program that you're about to go through, Zaina. So he's going to be a great resource to you." And Zaina turns to KJ to give him like a little warm smile, and KJ does not smile back. And then she was like, "This is Jonathan Kudo. This is my executive assistant. Also call him my honorary son. If you need to get to me, everything has to go through him. He is excellent." And Zaina turns to Jonathan and offers him a smile, and Jonathan returns the smile. And he's like, "Listen, please reach out to me. I would gladly assist you." And before he does the last introduction, Ken Sato gives the deepest sigh. Heavy, 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 heavy sigh. And he was like, "This is my daughter, Evelyn. Evelyn's in the management training program, too. She's still trying to find her footing. Please excuse her." And, Evelyn's just not even paying attention. And, Zaina, she actually doesn't need these formal introductions. She knows exactly who each person is because they were all childhood friends. Zaina was a little bit older than them, so they were children, and she was a teenager, and she used to watch them sometimes. And she knows them because her father, Mr. Azad, was business partners with Ken Sato until one day they had an explosive feud over money, which caused a major severance between the two families. And Mr. Azad promised to never, ever, ever, ever trust Mr. Sato ever again. And he essentially banned everything Sato related from their household. So no Sato products, no Sato gossip, and definitely no Satos in this palace. She's there now because Mr. Assad, his health has recently declined, and Zaina's mother basically begged her father for reconciliation. She feels as though there's no reason for her husband to still have hate in his heart at this point in his life. So, Mr. Azad, he agreed, but he still refused to see Mr. Sato face to face. So, Mr. Sato decides to give Zaina the same gift that Mr. Zod gave Mr. Sato, which was mentorship. Mr. Zod, so they were more than business partners. Mr. Zod was Mr. Sato's mentor. So that's why she's there now, sitting shoulder to shoulder. And, with that, after the introductions, Ken's like, okay, let's get to business. There's a page break, and it's after their meeting, and, the boys, Jonathan and KJ, they kind of run out to do their own thing. And Zaina approaches Mr. Sato, and, she feels all energized after the meeting. She feels like this job is a perfect fit. So she approaches him with a smile, and she's like, thank you so much again. You're doing my daddy a huge favor by hiring me. If there's anything I can do to pay you back, just let me know. We definitely owe you. And Mr. Sato is like, listen, your father owes me nothing. He taught me everything I know. I just pray that he has a full recovery. And if you really want to pay me back, then just be a great talent that he says you are. And Xana can feel that there's someone there, and it's Evelyn, Mr. Sato's daughter. So Xana's like, okay, peace out. Like, I'm going to leave you and your daughter. Clearly, she wants to speak to you. So Evelyn is just very grumpy, not happy. So she has something to say to her dad, but he kind of jumps the gun and says something to her first. And he's like, listen, you're getting a chance to learn directly from me, and instead you spend most of your time sleeping and texting. Get your act together. And like those words kind of cut through Evelyn. Before she could say anything else, he goes, aren't you ashamed of yourself? And Evelyn in her head, she's thinking, shame? If there's anyone in this whole building he needs to worry about shame, it was the person doing the pointing, not Evelyn. And she's about to give him the verbal ass whooping that he needs. But lucky for him, someone walks in. And Ken dismisses his own daughter. He was like, we'll finish talk about this later. So Evelyn leaves, and Mauricio kind of checks out Evelyn as she's leaving. And he's like, is that your daughter? Even though Mauricio knows. He did his research on the plane. And Ken is like, no, not today. She's not. He's like, but I'm glad you made it here in one piece. And Ken uses this moment to kind of talk down on Mauricio Olivares. He was like, I'm glad you made it here in one piece, Officer Olivares. And Mauricio's like, I'm not an officer. I haven't been an officer for years. I was the sheriff. I've been retired for 7 years, and now I'm just a private investigator. Ken just shrugs his shoulder. He doesn't give a damn. He does not care what this man's resume looks like. He just wants to make sure the job is done. Ken kind of jokes like, I'll make sure I write P.I. Olivares on the check. And Mauricio's like, okay, well, since we're talking about the check. So then, over the next few hours, they negotiate the stipulations of their agreement. And, Ken's kind of impressed that Mauricio is such a great barterer, excuse me. And they agree that Mauricio's sons are actually going to work the case. Ken is going to pay more money than he originally agreed to because he's having more people work the case. And Mauricio kind of warns Ken, like, listen, a job like this takes some time. And you want this person caught fast, so we need people on this case. So they agree. And we see the little handshake. And Ken just tells him, listen, you got yourself a deal. Do whatever you need to do to get it done. And it ends chapter 1 with this is going to be a commitment that neither man could forget. So that was chapter 1, all of chapter 1. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed it. I can honestly say I really enjoy creating this story. I really love The Sims and I really love writing, so this project is a really good blend of two things I truly enjoy, and I'm really just grateful to be able to create stuff and then share it with you guys. So I'm definitely open to any feedback you have. If you have any questions about the characters or the stories or something just doesn't make sense, definitely leave a comment. Or you can send me an ask on Tumblr, or you can leave a comment on my website. Um, you can also visit my website, and there's like a lot more goodies there. Right now, you're kind of seeing some other pictures I have posted on either my website or on Tumblr, or maybe I just had it stored for something I wanted to post and I never got around to. Um, and yeah, there's a lot of good things on there. So please like, comment, and subscribe. And I can't wait to see you guys again for chapter 2, which will be out shortly. Remember, that this is going to be posted on my website first. This, as in like the story itself, and then I kind of like narrate and summarize the story into the video. So if you really want to know what's happening in the story before everyone else on YouTube is, then I really recommend subscribing. On my website, you will receive an email notification every time I post. You can also follow me on Tumblr. I don't post my story, it's not as up to date as it is on my website, but it still gets posted there. Um, or you can subscribe on YouTube and receive the notification when it hits YouTube. So, hope you enjoyed it. Can't wait to see you guys for chapter 2. Bye bye.